You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
We did not engage in conflict that was out of line with our mission.
Is it disloyalty? Is it sedition? Is it treason to oppose the hands of tyranny? Never!
I will never send troops anywhere on a mission of that kind without telling them that if somebody shoots at them, they can darn well shoot back.
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty! Oh, give me death!
A dark cloud is finally lifting across the world as U.S. military intelligence and their global partners are destroying the deep state criminal power structure that has ruled over our planet for hundreds of years.
We are free with the God-given right, and we shall not yield that right to any power on earth.
Hi, I'm Scott McKay. The world is at, and I am your host on The Tipping Point on Revolution Radio, where every Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we bring you the latest in this ensuing takedown of this global criminal empire.
That's an image of strength.
You'll get the raw, hard truth here on The Tipping Point. So come join us Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern in Studio B at Revolution.Radio.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
She was living in a single room with 3 other individuals. One of them was a male, and the other 2, well, the other 2 were females. God only knows what they were up to in there. And furthermore, Susan, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to learn that all 4 of them habitually smoke marijuana cigarettes. Smoke marijuana cigarettes.
Hello, mofos. Oh, let me adjust this microphone. Let's see who all's in my YouTube chat. And welcome to Revolution.Radio. You are listening to Mountain High Time. 'Cause the place and the time are the same. And we already got the propaganda skyrocketing, the meter of propaganda from here on out. If you listen to the Thursday Mayak, I said that things were about to get really crazy and it's going to blow people's minds. Hopefully not literally, if you know what I'm saying. Let's check out the chat room over here. For you guys on YouTube, I believe I'm live. I forgot to set up a verification here. Let me do that real quick before we get too far. Can you guys even hear me on YouTube, that is? Anyway, yeah, some crazy stuff. Some crazy stuff's going down. And I just want to verify my new setup is working for the radio. Do. Here, let's get rid of this for a minute. How we do this? There we go. I'm going to verify with Revolution.Radio, which has a chat, by the way, over there, if you want to go check them out. And keep in mind, this is listener-supported radio. In other words, thanks to you and your donations, they stay on and is really the only free speech platform left other than maybe like Rumble or something. Let's see here if I'm live. Yeah, there we are. We don't need the echo. So you know what? Instead of bibble-babbling and being a political pundit, I'm just going to let you guys in radio land listen. And for you guys everywhere else on the various feeds that I'm on, in my small little mountain high time empire I'm building, we got the delusions of grandeur going on. It looks like somebody did, so I'm just going to get right to it here.
We see something that said, take a look at what happened.
And for you listeners, I'm sure you recognize the unmistakable sound of what CNN was earlier calling a interruption. It's just an interruption. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it looks like there was some noises, and then I think the president got Mike Tyson'd. He has a new ear. Wow. Anyway, let's check this out. And he seems to be not worried. Look at that TAC team roll through there. And poor people behind are just stuck there. They can't go nowhere. Shooter is down, they said. Let's move!
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus.
Let me get my shoes.
Watch out.
USA. SA. Anyway, let's check out some headlines and see how they're already spinning this around to cause the most devastation possible. Imagine how many different groups, peoples, interests, think tanks are going to try to take advantage of the situation if they didn't create it directly or indirectly, if you know what I'm saying. So, you could have extreme weirdos that push the narrative of personal defense safety systems being the cause of this. There's just so many ways they could go with this right now that's going to make it crazy in the coming weeks. I was going to talk about Neanderthals, but then, wow. And then here it goes. Video shots fired at MAGA rally. Secret Service rage to the stage. 2 believed dead, including suspect. And down here, interview with witness. Obviously, we can't play that one, I guess. They might get mad about what I already played. Blew the shooter's head off. Excuse me for the stutter. Sometimes that happens. Anyway, let's look at some of these other headlines and see how they fit in there. Maybe he was just some crazy guy that got some AI-powered vending machines bullets. Because this seems like a great idea, doesn't it? Wow. It's no secret that Americans love guns. Not only nearly half of Americans say that they live in a household with guns, but the U.S. beats out every other nation on Earth when it comes to gun density. The second most gun-dense country is Yemen, and it's not even close. The U.S. is actually the only country that has more guns than people. Given all that, it's not much of a surprise that in some states, you can now walk into a grocery store and buy bullets from a vending machine, as if you were ordering a candy bar or a soda. And thank God for that. I mean, you might need these more than that sugary fat from the other vending machines. I don't know. I'm just saying self-defense systems are necessary no matter what country you live in. Too bad other countries just don't have the ability to protect themselves correctly. I'll leave it at that. No, but you can call the cops and wait for them, I guess.
Hello, 911? Yes, people are entering my house and they have guns.
Okay, ma'am. We'll be there in about 30 minutes after my buddy finishes up a donut. We'll be right there. Because 911 is a joke in your town, unless you're in the right spot. And then they'll be there in seconds to find out why you're misdressed in the wrong neighborhood. That's weird how that works out. Must be because I'm black. Maybe not, though, because I'm not. Anyway, that was a funny story, but it's all too familiar to me when you go into richer areas and they can tell by looking at you, your haircut, your clothes, your vehicle, that you probably don't live around here. And then next thing you know, you got Dudley Do-Right asking you who you are, where's your papers, where you been, where you going, all kinds of nonsensical questions that are none of their damn business, is it? It's none of their damn business. Anyway, let's move on. This is something I predicted right here. Is it time for the Biden campaign to embrace AI? I mean, after all, this guy can't walk, talk, or complete a sentence very well. And it's rumored, I don't know if it's verified, but it's rumored he may have some irritable bowel syndrome, or maybe he just got eats too many of them little chocolate laxatives or something. I shat you not. I shat you not. That's the rumor anyway. He's President Poopy Pants. But I don't know if that's true. Who knows? This whole thing, all of it, could be just a really thought out WWE style, made for TV drama for you to pay attention to. For you to pay attention to really closely. Because you remember, I don't know, it wasn't the WWE then. I think it was like the WWF. But they got mixed up with those green people, the World Wildlife Foundation that likes to hunt animals. Or are they saving them? Or maybe it's a little bit of both. I think there was a controversy there sometime. Anyway, this could be all a made-for-TV production. And my point being that the old wrestlers used to promote like a pro-American team and a bad guy team, or a pro-American wrestler and a bad guy wrestler from some country somewhere. And they would build it up, and then they would switch personas, and the good guy would become the bad guy, and they would pump in all the attention and the money and the revenue from the new fad, and then they would switch back, and then the first good guy would redeem himself and become the good guy again, and start being the limelight and the champion wrestler. Come on, Hulkster, you know what I'm talking about. Back when you was, you turned to the dark side and hooked up with the NWO, and then you came back being a real American. I bet some of you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's some of that Maury Povich programming in daytime television that a lot of people really got into. And I swear there's those people that really think that the fake wrestling is real and the drama's real, and they're willing to, get mad, get in fights, pay money, all to watch it. Let's get it on pay-per-view. It's the WrestleMania, man. Anyway, back to the TV show of politics. Biden introduces Ukraine's Zelensky president as President Putin. But isn't that true, really? In front of NATO, no less. I mean, that is, as the headline says, a brutal gaffe. But it was funny looking at Zelensky's face when he said, President of Ukraine, Putin. I'm surprised I haven't got banned yet. Anyway, let's move on. Biden loses his train of thought and calls Vice President Harris President Trump in solo press conference, because the poor guy, I don't know what kind of drugs they got him on, or he's on himself, but sometimes they run out. I think he has to go nappy night like 8:30 or something like that. Not me. I got that weird Neanderthal gene that keeps me awake all night. I'm a night owl. And we'll get into that later if we have time. But yeah, what do you guys think about it? A hit on the ex-presidente. Was that what it was? Are they going to say it's just a random weirdo? Or was it, some mad Democrat that bought into the nonsense that he's going to become Hitler and take over, and he's going to start summarily executing, his rivals. I got to get these headphones off. They contribute to my stuttering. Anyway, yeah, Biden looks finished. There's surely no coming back from this, right? The president had his chance to have his big boy credentials, but he just made America look like an international joke, according to the Telegraph here. And then here's election 2024 live updates. Biden said there's no indication he's slowing down in high-stakes news conference. High stakes, they say. According to this poll, you can take polls with a grain of salt, though, because sometimes they, collect a bunch of the same-minded people to take the poll and then label them as, two different opinions. 63% of U.S. voters see Trump as an embarrassment. They're an embarrassment. They're embarrassing, and most of the world would replace them. Or not the world. Most of them would replace them, according to this poll. Donald Trump's a 4% point over Joe Biden. I bet that just went up to about 10 probably today, right? Oh, in a side note, HIV breakthrough drug trial shows injection twice a year is 100% effective against infection. And I was seeing some weird commercial on TV that was some pill that you could take, and it says, what did it say? Make yourself undetectable, and you can still have sex while on the pill. And supposedly you won't give this disease to other people. But think about that. That's the they're even doing a play on words on their own thing. People used to be terrified that they detected HIV in their system because they were afraid they were going to now get AIDS because they got HIV. But now don't worry about it. I guess this is that shot that Magic Johnson back in the day was taking or something. Nobody ever asked him, like, hey, man, didn't you get AIDS? Like, how come you never got old, sick, and died? But he didn't, because he's a have and not a have-not. That's probably the answer to that. But, yeah, so now you can just go get a shot twice a year and go around spreading, and they'll say, did you use the drug that, whatever the name of this, I don't want to get sued, so whatever the name of the breakthrough drug is, did you take this? Do you have side effects? Call Johnson & Johnson and we'll sue for you and we'll keep all the money. You deserve to get paid for being destroyed. 1/3 of the U.S. military could be robotic, something I've been predicting for a long time. And actually, I didn't really predict it. The Project for a New American Century straight up said that they wanted their Air Force and combat forces to be mostly robotic by 2025. Now, why would you want a completely robotic army in the first place? I mean, I get if you're going to go with the, benevolent idea that somehow you're saving lives by using robotics, or at least your guys' lives, right? But really, it just seems like they're setting up a system in which there will be no sympathy, mercy for the human being altogether, anywhere, at any time, under any, combat situation or operation or war or conflict that they might want to, host a show about in the theater of war there. Anyway, let's move on from that. According to Musk, don't worry about it, thermonuclear blasts and new species. Sorry, I had a sneeze attack. Thermonuclear blasts and new species inside Elon Musk's plan to colonize Mars. I think this is kind of delusional, but, maybe he believes in it, or maybe it's part of the TV program made for you and I to sit at home in our little cells we call our homes and not do much of nothing in real life. Because don't worry about it, these billionaires and these saviors got you covered. Whether or not you believe in the modern, the miracles of modern medicine that, lots of people have discovered since 2020. Or, you believe you're going to live in space someday. But, Musk is 53. He's a little bit older than I am. And he's directed SpaceX employees to drill into a design and detail of a Martian city. According to 5 people with knowledge of the efforts and documents viewed by the New York Times, one team is drawing up plans for a small dome habitat, including the materials that could be used to build them. Another is working on spacesuits to combat Mars' hostile environment, while a medical team is researching whether humans can have children there. Mr. Musk has volunteered his sperm. Oh, that's nice, buddy. Thanks, man. He's going to volunteer his cream to help seed the colony. 2 people familiar with this comment said, well, isn't that great? So there's going to be a new species of muskies up there dealing with the thermonuclear blast, or maybe we're going to deal with the thermonuclear blast right here on the planet Earth. And that's why projects like Neuralink and all of these other hydrogel platforms are being set up to integrate you and the Internet of all things. As long as they get your digital ID plugged in there, making you a digital ID of the Internet of Things, you are the digital idiot. That's what that is. That's what that is. But anyway, Elon Musk Neuralink prepares for some human trial, aimed superpower capabilities. Well, now, I told you many times on my show, on my channels, even though they keep getting banned and stricken or whatever it is, not just shadow banned, but terminated. I've been telling you, they are integrating the system so that you just have no way to get out of it. The digital ID will be everything about you, all of your choices. And the fact that they're going to hook this to people's minds just tells you the direction that they're going. And that is a complete track and trace, completely track and trace program where there's nowhere that you will go or nothing that you can do unless you have the keys to the Internet of Things. And, you know, if you get out of pocket, you might just be one of those targets for them robots when they go looking for people that have left their approved sector. Yo. Let's check in on the YouTube channel people over here. What are you guys doing in here? You guys just kicking it in there? I'm no moron. I run along the lines of idiot. Well, you know, better to be a moron, I guess, than a less off, as they say. Better to be pissed off than pissed on. Anyway, let's see. Oh, yeah, and for you guys on the radio, I'm showing this robot. And it is doing most of the kitchen work. Dial drive, it says down there underneath it. And they're talking about how the rise of the restaurant robots, Chipotle, Sweet Green, and others bet on automation. And I've been telling you this for a long time, that this is the future. There's no need for as many people, which means, well, when you're on the bottom, guess what? But anyway, this takes all the, work out of the work. And if you see in the background, you see this guy just standing there talking and this chick just standing there talking. She's filling the bag. And this one person is putting lids on stuff. Well, guess what? Obviously, the lid putting on job is another job for the robot. As you can clearly see, it's cooking it, it's making it, it's putting it out for them to grab. And this is probably by order as well. So this is happening in real time. Somebody ordered something and then, they're getting it. But if you realize what's going on in the background, they're showing you the future. There's one woman with a unnecessary job that's doing packaging. There's a guy standing around talking and a woman standing around looking at the robot. And it looks like even a fourth employee in the background just standing around. This is because they don't want people to realize how fast it's moving into complete automation and robotics, meaning that no people will have jobs. And if you don't have jobs, then you have to play by the rules and join their little grid system to get your food and your necessities. But before all of that, they got to kill off a bunch of people. That's what them robots is for. And, here's the title of this article right here. Half of the U.S. cancer deaths unavoidable. Alarming study says. 4 in 10 cancer cases and half of all adult cancer deaths in the United States could be avoided, new research indicates. The researchers say their findings demonstrate an urgent need for more effective interventions and access to prevent health care. Roughly 1.8 million new cancer cases are diagnosed in the U.S. every year, with roughly 600,000 deaths, according to the American Cancer Society. Cancer can affect anyone, but our risk of developing the disease can greatly increased by a number of environmental and lifestyle factors. Now, I can guarantee you that they're not going to go into the plethora of things that could be environmental, from your food to your air to your water to the products that the things you live in and on and take part in are made out of, and all the forever chemicals and yada, 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 yada. You guys know the bit. All the way to, maybe tweaking or nudging certain on or off buttons in your, genetic makeup that may increase these odds. But yeah, I think if you ate good and, you don't smoke and you don't drink and you exercise and you pretty much eat a good diet of organic food, you're probably going to live a long time. But not if you live in France. I'm sure you guys have seen the elections and realized that the elections in France have gone leftist, and they're already going crazy in the power with that leftism. But wealthy French spooked by the election, and they explore possible moves abroad. And what you're going to see is a second mass migration of the people that have any kind of leftover inherited wealth or resources from current, applications getting them money. And then they're going to take that money and they're going to get most of it taxed, and they're going to flee to a different country. But guess what? The countries are disappearing. The net is closing in. The world government is forming, whether you like it or not. And, we're going to circle back into war because I think it's really important considering the events that took place today. No matter what the boogeyman or propaganda says about what happened today, something is in the wind, and I'm sure you guys can all feel it. China sends most warplanes ever to key line with Taiwan. We're pretty sure that this is going to be a battleground, and when I say we, I mean anybody with a brain. Me, myself, I think that this is going to be one of those World War II repeats. So we're going to have stuff going on in, obviously, Eurasia, but also out here in the South China Sea. It's going to be heavily robotic at first. It's going to be awe-inspiring. And, like I said Thursday, things are just about to unfold weirder and weirder at an incremental rate that it's so hard to keep track of what's going on or how fast it's changing that just at some point, you live in their new world order. Also, Russia vows military response to the U.S. missile deployments in Germany because we keep putting missiles on their borders. So, of course, they're going to respond. And then here, we were just talking about the cancer. Let's get over to this. Right here. Groundbreaking study links gut microbiome to autism. The findings suggest the link between gut health and autism, raising the possibility of new treatment possibilities like probiotics and fecal transplants. And if you don't know what a fecal transplant is, that's when they cut someone open or, shove a collector up their bum and they get some of their poop and then they put it in another person because that person is completely dead inside. And because of the foods and medicines that they take, there's nothing alive in there. And so they need a new biome to take hold so that they don't get sick and die. And this is kind of that poop hitting the fan, because the poop is hitting the fan everywhere, from Mr. Poopy Pants to, pooped up assassination attempts to them finally admitting that your gut is the center of your health, and that if your gut isn't intaking organic good foods with a good microbiome, you're going to be goofy, you're going to be moody, you're going to be crazy, you're going to be all of these other things. And then when you throw on all of the other programs of destabilization going on just in America right now. Let's see, you got the fentanyl, you got heroin, you got meth, you got, massive amounts of people crossing the border that have no track or trace on them yet. But once they get here, they'll start participating in the biometric system so that they can take part in all the free giveaways. And in doing so, they completely destabilize the area. They make people that have already migrated here angry because they had to play the game legally, but now they've changed the game and it's better to be a new guy. It's kind of like what the banks do to people, well, this is only for new customers only. If you're an old customer, it doesn't apply for you. You don't get a neat little handbag and a neat free leather wallet with a ballpoint pen in our point system because you're an old customer, and the new customers get these free gifts. Anyway, of course, your gut biome is the center of what's really at the heart of everything, from cancer to illnesses, from mental illnesses to physical ailments. And now they're going to throw that on autism, not counting probably the other scenarios that may be contributing to this condition that may be curable. Anyway, let's move on before I get in trouble. And back to what I was saying. Assassination attempt on President Trump. Hit by gunfire at MAGA rally. Rushed away by Secret Service. And not only that, if you saw the pictures, I don't know if I can get, if this one's going to have pictures or Jones trying to talk. There was a picture I saw. I'm not seeing it here. Maybe I'll go to Twitter here in a second to check it out. There was a picture I saw that he has a Mike Tyson ear. Maybe we can see it in this one. I don't know. No. It looks like he has a Mike Tyson ear. Like it just grazed his ear, and he has 2 holes in it now. And by the way, this show is sponsored by Unicorn Farts. Unicorn Farts is a strain that you could find at your local New Mexico dispensaries. Hint, right here. The local dispensaries. Anyway, I was watching this the other day, and it was trippy. This is a black activist telling the Breakfast Club African Americans are being replaced by illegals. Now, basically, what he says is that there is a replacement going on of people here. Now, if you've heard the leftist propaganda, you would know that that's some kind of white supremacy conspiracy theory, the great replacement theory. But, numbers don't lie. And whether it's some nefarious thing to get rid of the people that live in the Western world and the countries that live there or not, it's still happening mathematically. So, yeah, there's that. Let me open up a new tab here. Sorry. Open up a new tab here for a new topic, but I want everybody to watch this one more again right here. And this is, you tell me, is this made for TV or did this really happen? Oh, by the way, before anybody does any crazy stuff or whatever, I think it happened. It looks legit to me. I read the crowd. They look nervous. They look tense. The Secret Service seemed to be actually doing something, and it appears that there is a chunk missing out of the ex-president or president's ear, however you like to say that.
We see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. You ready? Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move? We're clear. Let's move. We're clear.
Let me get my shoes.
Got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay.
Watch out.
No, I'm still tripping on that part. He's like, let me get my shoes on. Now, somebody said it looked like he had a mortal wound, and I don't think he did. It looks like it just nicked two parts of his ear and possibly a piece on his cheek. And there was like blood started draining from it after that. And then it looks like it appears that he says, fight, fight. So everybody's going to twist that and say that, I could see, like I was saying before, the amount of propaganda that they're about to have. Look at Trump. He's inciting a civil war. Look at him. Or they're going to say that it's his fault because of January 6th. You could go with this anyway. If you were on the right side, say there was some clandestine stuff doing there, you could have an immigrant that's not supposed to be here and say, look, they can just point the finger and point the finger and point the finger, and people will just follow it. They don't even make up their own mind about what they saw. Don't trust your lying eyes. Now, what I saw in that, though, was what looks like a vet in the back, and I'm going to show you that. This looks like I might be wrong, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to misinfo nobody. All right, so let me roll this back to right when it starts happening. You see this guy in the camo hat? Here, I'm going to mute this. We don't have to hear that. he's talking, and where's this guy? Where is he? There he is. You see his teeth grinding, and he gets down, he takes cover, and his eyeballs are so awake. He's looking that way, he's looking this way, he's looking at what's going on, he's hunching, he's ready to jump, even though they're probably locked in there. Like, you can't run. You might get Secret Serviced, if you know what I mean, if you just ran. And then there's this goofy guy wearing this weird hat, and he's just like, dur, dur, dur. I guess I'll be part of history. Now, evidently, some people back here got capped that was behind Trump, and I'm sure there's more. So we're going to see what's the new on this right now on Mountain High Time here on Revolution.Radio. Now, if you're listening to the radio, I play a lot of pre-programming, and I take care of it. But I'm going to try to be live all the time, but we're still going to be playing videos because, well, they're good, and the people that make them don't worry about copyrights and all that stuff. I usually play some Greg Reese videos during this hour, but since the president almost got his ear blown off, but think about that, was like an inch, right? So let's see here. It looked to me like he got a piece out of right here and right here and something about right here on his cheek, and it looked like something just went pew. So that was about a ½ inch or less from his nugget, and you might have got to see a Kennedy style head blower, just like I said Thursday night. People are going to have their minds blown at the amount of craziness that is going to happen between now and the election, and anything goes. Aliens, World War III, a presidential assassination attempt, evidently. I mean, come on. What else can we throw at us? Let's check in on the YouTube chat and see what they're talking about in there. And if you guys would like to join a community that's listening to the radio on Revolution.Radio that is listener supported, you can come over to my channel, Mountain High Time. We're broadcasting, I think, on several different things. I forget the other ones. There's the Raven Wolf channel. There's America in 4K. There's probably Twitter and Facebook, and you'll find it everywhere. This is Mountain High Time, where the place and the time are the same. And let's go look over into the Mountain High Time chat room with a bunch of friendly, good, sarcastic, freedom-loving Americans that enjoy free speech. So if you go into my chat and you are naked and you don't have a wrench, if you know about YouTube, you can get a wrench that allows you to say what you want. And, you know, there's not going to be any Karens or anybody that get mad at what you're saying. And then they're like, oh, ban them or report them. I don't like what you said. It's mean. I think that whatever you say in the chat reflects you and you only. So if you come in and start saying some dumb as F stuff, then, you know, that only reflects on you. If you come in with dumb racist stuff or flat earth BS, I don't believe in it. I'm sorry if that offends you. Sorry. I've always looked up at the sky. I'm not buying it. The moon looks inverse if you're in Australia that it does in the northern hemisphere. You could literally in this date and time phone a friend in Australia and say, hey man, what's the moon look like there? Take a picture of it for me and send it to me. You could get sticks and put them on live feeds in different time zones and, you know, see if the earth is round. Is anyone doing that? No, they're not doing it. They're just making up stupid stuff on the internet, which, by the way, that's something else I told you Thursday, that from now on you're not going to be able to believe anything you see, hear, or read, with the risk of it being skewed, the reality of it being skewed in some way or altered from deep fakes to AI algorithms, regular propaganda, extensive propaganda you don't even know about, new types of propaganda. And when I mean propaganda, I mean that in every way. I'm not just talking about the people telling the normal truth, not talking about the people that mix the truth and the lies. I'm not talking about only the people that lie, but all the technological propaganda that they have. Propaganda tools like flicker rates and manipulating your emotions with soundtracks. Why do you think every movie in Hollywood now is contracted to have a little bit of the AI in there, and they have to have the orchestra people and the special effects people, and they got to have a percentage of the LGBT community. All these things are either written into the law through lobbyists or contracted in where they have to do it. So you're not going to see a new real movie out of Hollywood. I think it's going to crumble. They're going to have new outlets of movies with new people, with new you notice, like, my thing is, I hate that I do enjoy television sometimes, or movies, if it's, they try to keep it serious and they can catch my attention and I can immerse myself into this story they're telling. But I can't do that because there's so much propaganda. I can't help taking it apart technically or logically and saying why. I mean, like, how many movies have you seen where they get the bad guy down and then they don't pick up the guy's gun, but there's people trying to kill him and they just ignore it? Okay. Or maybe they're worried about being gunned down by the popo when they show up and shoot you for trying to save people. Who knows? Oh, sorry about that. Bump the mic. Anyway, let's check out some other stuff now that I'm done with my little rant. So, what else do you think will happen? It's not that far-fetched for something like this to happen to the other guy. But maybe he'll just, get sick, or his cold is too bad, or he's just too old, or they finally admit that he's got dementia. And what do you think happens when they cut him off all these state-of-the-art drugs? Well, he's going to fall apart like Reagan did. If you remember, Reagan was saying some stuff about aliens and different things, and I think he realized he got played by the Bushes. But he shut his mouth after, he got capped in the stomach there. I mean, I think he found out who was in charge, since the guy that shot him was eating over at the Bush's house, the night before or whatever. So I think he figured that out. But I think he tried to leak some stuff. And like Trump, somebody tried to cap him too. But it seemed very organized and set up. But it didn't work. But, we got the war on drugs. We got the, what was it? The Iran-Contra thing that caught us dealing drugs and guns and making money and letting our intel ops go crazy with power. You think that's changed? No. Obviously, that's still happening. Let's add a new window and topic for the last 15 and some of the next hour, right here on Revolution.Radio. Now, I am going to mess with some of your preconceived notions about humans. What are humans? What are we? Well, we're not what they say we are. That's for sure. Let me fix this window nice and pretty for all my YouTube viewers. Just get rid of some of that. Have a nice, big, healthy picture so you guys can look at what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go through this randomly because my browser crashed, and I kind of had a thing I was going to talking about humans, but it's out of order. So we'll just go through it article by article and trip out on that. So genetics explain the demise of the Neanderthals. They did not go extinct. We assimilated them. Oh, excuse me. And the whole thing that people think of as the idea of race is really nonsensical, because we know why people look different in different places, because they were separated by time, and they had unique genetics going on there for thousands of years in each place. And we're talking thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably more than I'm going to say that these guys claim. So we're going to go over the fact that a lot of the times don't match up and don't make sense. And some of the stuff that they say is just, it doesn't make sense. But we'll get into that. Genetics explain the demise of the Neanderthals. They did not go extinct. We assimilated them. In 2010, a Swedish geneticist who had been obsessed in his youth with the idea of recovering genetic material from Egyptian mummy achieved a much greater milestone. That year, Savante Pablo, or no, it's not Pablo, it's Pabo, revealed the first genome of a Neanderthal, the species closest to ours, which may not actually be true, and confirmed that tens of thousands of years ago we had sex and children with them. It was a true cataclysm in the history of human evolution, and this impact can be seen today in the majority of the planet's inhabitants who still carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA in each of their cells. In 2022, the lab colleagues threw Pabo into a pond to celebrate him winning the Nobel Peace Prize, or excuse me, the Nobel Prize in Medicine for these discoveries. The fact that today it is possible to extract and read DNA from a fossil has provided data on how and where sexual encounters occurred between Neanderthals and every other human species of the time. The human species originally from Europe, one of evidently, see, this is where we get into some problems, because it may be that it's only one of the human species that originally came from Europe. And us, Homo sapiens, who they insist came originally from Africa. And we'll get into that in a minute, because it may not be Africa that our main core species of the Homo sapien that became us may not have actually came from Africa at all, but only mated with other humans in Africa. It's beginning to look like there were many different human species, not just one or two or three or four or five or six or seven or eight or nine, but 10 or 15 different mixes of hominids and hominids that were specifically different than the other groups, meaning that they were split off from the other groups at a longer period of time in the past and began to progress and evolve, if you will, into a different subspecies or species of human. Until now, science has focused on how Neanderthals' genes affected sapiens. For example, genes from the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, another human species discovered by Pabo, and isn't that weird how the same guy discovered both, have allowed sapiens to live in the highest regions of the planet and strengthen our immune systems in the past, while making it more vulnerable to some of today's diseases. The biggest enigma remains why, if we were so compatible, the Neanderthals disappeared between 40 and 30,000 years ago, and sapiens became the only human species on Earth. On Thursday, a study has turned the focus around and asked how sapien DNA affects Neanderthals, and if we somehow contributed to their disappearance. The results published in the prestigious Journal of Science reveal unknown chapters of this story. In other words, they have no clue. Even with the data that they have, all they know is that some people at some time, at some place, out of the fraction of fossils that they find of, their projected amount of populations, the truth is they really have almost no idea of what's going on right now. And the reason for that is because the only evidence that they can have comes in the ground. And it's not just every day that somebody falls into the right place or was put into the right place to survive tens of thousands of years for us to come along and find and look at the skull and say, hey, well, this one looks like ours. This one looks a little different. What's going on here? And then compare DNA found in those fossils with the current human genome, which has been mapped out. So they know this. So keep this in mind when you hear the race pushers pushing their ideas of race, from the Afrocentrists to today's textbooks on how race is and what it is. Our data supports the idea of the factor of extinction of the Neanderthals, probably the most important. It's that they were simply absorbed by our species. And this is where it gets into weird, because they have two different terms. They have modern anatomically correct humans, and then they have what they're calling modern humans. And they don't usually distinguish these two for the general public, and they give you this idea that there's this one linear progression of some guy that was the Adam, and he lived somewhere in Ethiopia, and all of this is based on bodies they find in the ground, but that doesn't mean that individual or that kind of individual only lived there. It doesn't really give a number of what the populations were like. It doesn't really tell you how far that person traveled. All they know is what they can get from stone tools and things found at it, and the dating of carbon dating mixed with the genetic information. Anyway, the work confirms that the first and largest encounter between both species was way earlier than previously thought, about 200,000 years ago. Now, keep in mind that they've been teaching people that modern human beings have only been around for, 30,000 years. Then they pushed it to 40, then 50. And I will show you that now, according to genetics, there were people just like Europeans living in Eurasia 60, 70,000 years ago. And this is before some of these admixture events happened with the other human species around the world. Groups of Homo sapiens from Africa supposedly arrived in Europe and had sex with the children of the Neanderthals, who received up to 10% of their genome. And that's a considerable amount, taking into account that the current sapiens from outside of Africa, and this is important because no outside of Africa people have sub-Saharan African DNA. They just don't have it. So if we were from their group of people that came out of Africa and this is the idea that we mutated all over the place. Makes more sense that a group possibly came out of Africa, but wasn't the same group as we nowadays call sub-Saharan African, and we'll get to that in a minute. However, they were an early group of humans, and they could have possibly lived in Africa or even anywhere around the Mediterranean, or especially in around Jerusalem and in that area, because they found other older human-like or human people there. Anyway, so Neanderthals, who received 10% of the genome, which is a considerable amount, like I said, taking into account that of current sapiens from outside of Africa, have only around 2%. And actually, I've seen papers and different things that range this from 2 to 10% of Neanderthal DNA. What most interesting is that these groups of sapiens never managed to settle Europe or Asia, allegedly, because we haven't found too many of their bodies, except for Cro-Magnon, where they say moved into there, but can't really tell you where he came from before that. So they all became completely extinct, according to this. The group of humans that first moved into Europe became completely extinct. About 120,000 years ago, another wave of sapiens ventured outside of Africa, probably in search of game and new territories. So keep in mind, they just told you that already groups of human beings were wandering around Europe 200,000 years ago. So they already told you that, but they say they became extinct. About 120,000 years ago, another wave of humans, probably in search of game and territories. The climate was favorable and created a large land bridge between Africa and the Sinai Peninsula, through which they reached the Near East in the Arabian Peninsula. And this does get into the era of what looked like Cro-Magnon to me, and we'll look at some skulls later, or what you would have to call modern anatomically correct humans in the way that it's used, and not just a modern human remains. And I'm pretty sure I got that open, but it's out of order here. So they're talking about these early mixes of just Neanderthal and Homo sapien, or human. And I'm going to go ahead and name the core species Cro-Magnon. And that's going to upset some people because that's associated with only early European hominids, or people, or humans. Like how they like to confuse the whole topic. But the evidence is showing there was a lot of different humans running around, but the one we are now came from a specific one that mated with the other kinds, and now we are all an admixture species.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
We will not comply with the institution's sick illusion. No, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. We will not comply with the institution's sick illusion. No, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. They're trying to dumb us down. Don't want us to make a sound. We gotta get out of now, 'cause it's a revolution.
Revolution.Radio, freedomslips.com.
Join me at Revolution Radio, Studio B, at 11 a.m. on Saturday for Free Association, when we take a look at philosophy, spirituality, psychology, social issues, and geopolitics. It's every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Studio B at freedomslips.com.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
And we're back. And welcome to Mountain High Time here on Revolution.Radio. It's the Stoner Hour. What time is it now? It's 7:03:18 Mountain High Time right now. And yeah, I already confirmed my theories like right away. So looking around on the different social medias, they're already pushing the gun control. They're already pushing, this means civil war. Matter of fact, on PBS, I think they're playing Civil War with Abraham Lincoln right now. Don't buy into their propaganda. Don't participate in their BS. That's what I'm saying. Don't do it. Just like I told people about J6, that looked like a setup. It looked made for TV, and it turned out to be made for TV. That's closed circuit television, right? And they tried to cut it and paste it and, portray it in a way that they, the elite, could call us commoners, us citizens, us free people, insurgents. Because that's what they wanted to do since 2001. Don't kid yourself. That's why they started pushing that domestic terrorist crap and all of that. It's just layers and layers. And each time the government takes some more power and limits some more freedom and more tries to call it a democracy when it's not. We're a constitutional republic. And, well, what's left of it. Anyway, we were talking about other types of humans and the fact that we are an admixture species of different species and that there is no race. There's different skin tones and there's different looks and appearances and traits because of different species mixing and becoming one species. But they got all you guys, not you guys, not my audience, but all of those people ready to jump at the tribalism idea. And all they got to do is talk about somebody's skin tone or talk about how somebody doesn't have a skin tone or they got purple hair or they got 3 toes and only 5 fingers. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's all a bunch of nonsense to keep you divided, to keep you arguing, to keep you fighting with strangers on the internet. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had my fun trolling people on the internet, acting dumb, saying stuff to trigger them. I've done it. I'm guilty. It's called free speech. Grow a skin or move away. See the sun coming in this time of day, messing my screen up. What the hell? Anyway, let's get back into our hominid business. All right, so I'm gonna skip over to this right here. Humans and Neanderthals had a longer, more intertwined relationship than we thought. And if you look right there, there is 2 examples of a Cro-Magnon or modern human skull next to a Neanderthal skull. Now, I'm not sure which. Let's see what it says. Is it a modern or is it a Cro-Mag? Is there a difference? Let's see. I don't think it says, but I'm pretty sure this is a Cro-Mag. But it's hard to tell with a modern human. And the reason for it, I'll describe it to you guys on the internet. Well, the Cro-Mag head was big and had a big brain comparable with Neanderthal. And today, on average, humans have a smaller brain cavity with a smaller brain. Now, I've seen studies that say our brain is getting bigger, but our overall head size and brain has actually gotten smaller since Pleistocene times, or at least for some groups of humans. All right, let's move on. But anyway, let's describe it. So the human has a more rounded head. Cro-Magnon, modern human, indistinguishable for this purpose. They have a nose bridge that goes out to about the same spot as the teeth, and a well-defined chin, and a more, compact skull. Now, the Neanderthal, on the other hand, has big old teeth, a different number of teeth, big eyebrow ridges, and the socket bone that goes around it. I forgot what you call that. The orbital socket or something. I don't know, but it's big, and it's got big brow ridges and an elongated towards the rear skull with a jaw that's more narrow but twice as long. So really a different looking person than the Cro-Magnon or a modern European. Looks different. But they were there hanging out together, we know. This one's a different article about the same thing. Neanderthals and modern humans had a fascinating intertwined past. We know from studies of our own DNA that the past of these two species crossed and things could get more than a little steamy. In other words, they were bumping and grinding. Now, we don't know how that exactly worked out. Traces of Neanderthal DNA is in our own genetic code suggest that mingling and breeding happened more than once, as we talked about. They have different time periods that they're saying this happened. The results reveal a long, repeated association between the two groups of hominids, dating back as long as 250,000 years, and the researchers found that the Neanderthal DNA that shows traces of previous relationships has led scientists to overestimate the overall population size of Neanderthals by about 20%. Now, when someone says they got the population wrong, I'm wondering how they even knew what the population was, because it's only based on trinkets, artifacts, and bodies that they found, not on any kind of, poll or, census of the time. There's groups of people or even hominids we've never even discovered because they didn't leave fossils behind, or groups of people that we didn't even know existed because they didn't leave nothing behind, and time buried them and made them invisible. But here's a different date. They're talking 250,000, while the other one was only talking 200,000. Now let's move on here. Unknown human lineage found buried in the Neanderthal genome. This goes into some of the same topic. Also, Homo sapiens migrated into Eurasia more than 70,000 years ago. See, here's another date that's more of an updated date. But moved in from where is the question? Because... this ain't a Cro-Magnon dude right here. This is a Neanderthal right here. But he looks mixed with also some other kind of hominid as well. We don't know much about the ensuing relationship, but it was probably continuous at times, while Neanderthal eventually disappeared about 40,000 years ago. There are now 8 billion of us. Hominids who shared an ancestor with us but had spent roughly 500,000 years diverging. In other words, they were quite different. Now, but you also got to keep in mind that although Neanderthal and Cro-Mag, we know they were mixing, and we know that Neanderthal and Denisovan was mixing. But we also know that Neanderthal was basically unchanged for about 450,000 years in Europe. Now, think about what time period that is compared to how fast they say our group of modern humans came about in only tens of thousands of years. So Neanderthal's just there doing its thing for hundreds of thousands of years, basically unchanging, except for picking up a small amount of admixture along the way when it came into contact with what is alleged to be a cousin of our species, but also us ourselves at some point or multiple points in the past. Now, could Neanderthal talk? And this becomes very important when you start thinking about why possibly other hominids went extinct, or why they were assimilated. There could have been problems with communication based on physical traits and not mental traits. Neanderthals were our closest human relatives, except for those cousins they were just talking about in the other article. And they had many similarities in anatomically modern humans. Now, remember, there's two terms out there, and I'll get to that in a minute. But could Neanderthal talk? Several pieces of evidence suggest they could, but to answer this question first, it's important to distinguish between speech and language. Speech refers to the ability to verbally say sounds and words. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just joking, but to that effect. Language is far more complex. It means using those sounds to share ideas. Simply mating. Oh, that's something else related. Sorry. Some researchers suggest that the speech was acquired long before Homo sapiens and that Neanderthals split off in the evolutionary tree some 400 to 800,000 years ago. Now, keep in mind, this is a date between 500,000 and 1 million years old, basically. And what my theory is that there were modern humans 1 million years ago because of the fact that this other human species was around for this long, provably. Now the question is why aren't there any why aren't all those fossils of the modern humans around? Where's the changes between what they're calling modern humans and the specifically anatomically modern humans? Well, there isn't. There's just not out there. Before modern humans split from Neanderthals, the last common ancestor already possessed articulate speech according to this. So if they had speech, there was the possibility to communicate. Language, on the other hand, it doesn't seem to me that vocal languages wouldn't exist in almost all of these groups of hominids, just based sheerly on the fact that apes of today can learn human languages like sign language, and they can use screens, they can learn fire, they can learn tools, and these are supposedly quite primitive apes compared to humankind, but they can do it yet. And then there's animal kingdoms. We have parrots, there's meerkats, etc., that have proven to have a vocabulary of many words and repeatedly use sounds or gestures to convey that to another of their own species. Here's I only have this in here. Like I said, it's out of order. This is an article about well-preserved human remains of over 177 individuals dating back 8,000 years ago were unearthed at Wendover Bog in Florida, right? So I just want you to hear this, and I brought this up because, when they first dug up these guys, they said they were European, and then they changed it to they were Native American because they got some DNA. But the first DNA said that they were of Eurasian descent, and then they changed it later, but that's not that weird, and we'll get to that when we get to my own DNA in a second. Okay. During the construction of a new road in 1882, a backhoe operator in Florida dug up an ancient burial site. It had all in it 177 human remains dating 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, and it was unearthed at the peat bottom pond known as Wendover Bog. Now, if you don't know, there's such a thing as bog mummies, and they find them throughout Europe, whether they were intentional. Some of them were intentional, some of them maybe not, but they're all over in areas of Nordic Europe or Germanic Europe or Vikings areas, and even in England and Ireland, I believe. But decades after the initial excavations, researchers revealed that people buried in Wendover were from Asia, but had migrated to North America. However, this did not seem to be related to any existing Native American tribe or prehistoric people. And then this is the kicker right here. So I don't know who writes this crap. So you can never trust anything you read, because who knows what they're clipping it from or sourcing really anymore. But this is the good one here. So they must have either gone extinct or their population was severely reduced before modern humans evolved. They're trying to say that modern humans didn't evolve until after 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. Obviously, that's a mess up. Or an artificial intelligence wrote that article about the 177 bog bodies that date back 8,000 years. So that was totally unrelated to our topic. But here we go. There was a time the human race nearly went extinct. But which human race? Was it ours, or was it one of the many others that were running around at the same time? Different groups of people segregated by time and space, but related through genetics. The arena, let's see here, through human Though humans today represent a robust, ever-growing population, there was a time on planet Earth where we, or more accurately, or primitive ancestors, see, there we get into, is it really us, were actually critically endangered and faced near extinction. A new paper argues that prehistoric humans had an extremely close call. The evolution of the human race is part of a large complex story with many human-like and photo-human species. I think that meant proto, but they put photo. Human species living simultaneously on the planet for the last few million years. Now, these guys are really messing with me when they do this. Maybe photo-human is a word, but I think that means proto-human. I don't know. That stuff messes me up when I'm trying to read, you know. But anyway, there was a proto-human species living simultaneously on the planet for the last few million years. And like I'm saying, maybe modern humans is maybe more like 1 million years old. And possibly with some survivors of subspecies like Homo florensis, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals throughout to have stuck around and recently as 50,000 years ago. But long before Homo sapiens, another dominant variety, an earlier unknown ancestor of all of us, possibly a subspecies of Homo erectus, found itself in pretty bad shape. No one knows the true cause of this evolutionary bottleneck. Maybe it was disease or rapid climate change. Of course, you know, they were driving too many SUVs, or some other problem. But for a while, there's some time between 1 million and 800,000 years ago. So we're already talking still in the same time as Neanderthal. Remember, 400 to 800,000 years. So why wouldn't it also be the same time period for the other modern humans around the planet, like Denisovan or Cro-Magnon? Why wouldn't they be around also for 450,000 years or 800,000 years? I don't know. It's possible that the entire population of hominids shrank to about 1 in 2,000 members. Now, this goes into what I'm kind of tripping on, is that there may have been like 12 or 15 different human type species that got reduced so little in population they had no other choice but to create admixture offspring that then branched out and broke into different groups and became unique in their own way. If so, it makes perfect sense. Also, conveniently coincides with the period of history that left very few bones behind in the fossil records. Another indicator that they really have, you know, like only a small percentage of the picture of what's going on with hominids and the history of hominids leading up to the one that we are today. This is not only evolutionary bottleneck may have taken place in our distant past later, where Homo sapiens arose, there are others such as whatever happened to make it possible for us to trace our genetics history back to mitochondrial Eve about 150,000 years ago, or another squeeze that occurred 70,000 years back. Now, keep in mind, 70,000 years back, it's the new date that they're giving for modern anatomically man to have kind of rolled out onto the scene. We already covered that. And here's a picture for you guys on YouTube that they're saying is a 300,000-year-old first human. And you look at him, he looks like Kenny Rogers for you guys on the radio, supposedly with the Neanderthal skull, I think. If I'm not mistaken, let's see, a Brazilian designer created a three-dimensional image of what the first human might have looked like 300,000 years ago. Okay, blah, 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 blah. And this one says we came out of Africa at 200,000 also. You know, I don't know about that now. From the genes, and we're about to get to that. So here's supposedly what this Neanderthal woman looked like. Now, I have no idea why they made her have dark hair, dark eyes, and dark skin, but it's not that far-fetched that she might have, and we'll get into that too. Although we do know that Neanderthals carried skin from dark skin to white skin. That's right. Early Europeans had different skin tones of the same species that they say lived from 800 to 450,000 years ago until about 40,000 years ago. And this is the face of that. So, and if you look at the skull, quite different than a human skull. Big eyebrow ridges like we went over before. Study reveals why humans outlived Neanderthals. A study of teeth indicated humans provided prolonged child care to offspring. We also know now from another article that I read recently that also Neanderthal took care of their kids and even the Down syndrome kids. So this one seems kind of silly right here. That might not be why. 50,000 years ago, Neanderthal was supposedly just as smart or smarter than us. 50,000 years ago, tar-smeared tools shows Neanderthal smarts. And what's funny to me is that they just base this on Neanderthal sites with Neanderthal people, but they don't exactly know where they got the technology, or if they created the technology, or if another group created the technology and gave it to them, if they just saw them doing it and started doing it. But for 450,000 years, they were making cool tools. And this is, tools suggest Neanderthals had mastered complex technology of tar making, putting us on par with modern humans that supposedly didn't come up with this stuff till, 50,000 years ago or so. Humans may have bred with Neanderthal much earlier than previously thought. We know that. We know that. Intellectually inferior humans caused Neanderthal to go extinct, a new book claims. So we got vast amounts of theories on why Neanderthal disappeared. But the one that makes sense mostly to me is that they just got outnumbered, and that we did assimilate them, because we know that we did, to a point, just judging by the amount of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA in all European, Asians, and Native Americans, period. Neanderthals also had superior tool-making abilities, not just humans. We covered that. Here it is. Cro-Magnons, sometimes called early European modern humans, members of our species, Homo sapiens, who lived in Europe at the end of the Ice Age. They had language, they created art, and some of them lived in the same place all year long, which we think of as happening only with agriculture. But did they just pop up with agriculture? Did they? Did it just happen? And here's another one. Cro-Magnon to settle in Europe, migrating from Western Asia, continuously occupying the continent possibly as early as 56,000 years ago. Okay, now keep in mind, we're going 50, we're between 40 and 50,000 years ago. We're talking about different kinds of humans popping up at the same time. And I'll get to that in a second. So they're saying right here on this one that, they moved from Asia into Europe about, let's just say 70 or 60,000 years ago on this one, 56,000 years ago. And here's one that's talking about in that span of about 25,000 years, European ancestors, Cro-Magnons, had very little change. They didn't change much, even mixing with the Neanderthal here and there. They didn't change much. Their archaic DNA remained static for a long time. Anyway, European ancestors, Cro-Magnons, 28,000 years ago, had DNA like modern humans. Some 40,000, see, this goes even younger. They're trying to say modern man just walked out, even though the other one just said quite a bit longer before that. Some 40,000 years ago, Cro-Magnons, the first people who had skeleton that looked anatomically modern, entered European, coming from Africa? The other one just said we came from Asia at 56,000 years ago. But yeah, so they have no idea when things happened. Here's another one. Amongst the oldest known remains of Homo sapiens are those found at the Omo Kibish archaeological site in southwestern Ethiopia, dating to about 233,000 to 196,000 years ago, right? And they give this thing, but then they're showing a picture of a modern human and a Neanderthal next to it, but actually the skull was this one, which does not look like Cro-Magnon or modern humans whatsoever, and actually resembles quite a lot Cro-Magnon. Big eyebrow ridges, not much of a chin, almost no chin at all, a big, long, narrow jaw, big teeth, and a nose bridge that's way behind the teeth, even behind the chin. So way back in the back. It's even more pronounced than Cro-Magnon's face, the amount of angle on the face that ends in teeth. And this is a Neanderthal. That's what that looks like. And here's some other ones, and which is funny because you can go through these skulls and you're not going to find any ones that look like modern humans except for Cro-Magnon, period. All the ones that they're saying are modern humans, not so much. Here's Europe's oldest known human, mated with Neanderthals surprisingly often, and as you can clearly see on the skull, even despite it missing the face, it has a pointed, protruded chin, and you can tell where the nose broke off that it used to be level with the teeth and the chin. Here's the guy that they say Homo sapiens 100,000 years ago. Now keep in mind that this is only 30,000 years from when they're saying Cro-Magnon moved from Asia or Africa into Europe and looked absolutely and positively identical to modern Europeans. So this guy does not look like that, and this is only 30,000 years. Now keep in mind also, they said Cro-Magnon 400,000 to 800,000 years ago was pretty static and didn't change their look much and didn't change. Here's a guy out of Israel that's dated about 100,000 years ago, and guess what? He has a pointed chin. He has a jaw that looks like ours. He has no giant eyebrow ridges, and his nose is broke off, so we can't see that, but they do have the square eye socket of the Cro-Magnon, which means that there was indeed modern anatomically correct people walking around with all of these other types of people at the same time. And again, here's this one. And keep in mind, you are not going to find many examples of this AMH, anatomically modern human. It'll be associated with pictures like this, but it won't be a modern human. And then early modern humans fits all of the groups, right? No matter how archaic or different they look. So there is none of these guys all around in Africa like they're saying, like there should be. There should be, though. Let's move on. Let's move on. More of it. All right, this guy, bizarre finding changes in the way we think about human evolution. Human evolution might be more bizarre than we once thought, according to a new study. In the past, scientists believed that hominid evolution was largely driven by changes in the climate. But now researchers from the University of Cambridge have suggested that competition was, in fact, fundamental to human evolution. And I would agree with that absolutely. And the idea that the populations got bottlenecked of these different various. So think about this. If one hominid bottlenecked at only 100,000 years ago and 70,000 years ago, it stands to reason that maybe the other hominid groups also got bottlenecked at that same time period and would have had limited mating opportunities. So this guy obviously is not a modern human that they're showing there. It's a skull of a Homo floresiensis, or however you say that, the hominid species associated with the Hobbit. And it looks like they were intertwining with all of these different groups. Now, here I'm going to get to specifically modern humans and Europeans with the haplotype groups. And keep in mind that some of these haplotype groups can be traced right back to Cro-Magnon man 30 and 40,000 years ago, right in Eurasia, meaning that they probably lived there for a long time. And then we'll get to my DNA here in a minute, and I'll talk about how crazy this whole concept is and the way they portray it. So haplogroup U2 is a rare lineage, very homogeneously spread across Central Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, and North Africa, with frequent typically ranging from 0.5 to 2%. Only a few isolated ethnic groups, mostly in Volga, Ural, and North Caucasus region. But this U2 branch is connected with Cro-Magnons, so they're direct descendants of Cro-Magnon. Haplogroup U2 is an extremely old lineage going back at least 40,000 years. So that's that low end marker of when we came onto the scene, even though they have examples and DNA that says that it was there in Europe for a lot longer, but we'll skip that right now. So at least back 40,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens first expanded from the Middle East and South Asia and Central Asia, and before they even set foot in Europe, two of the oldest Homo sapien DNA samples from Europe tested to date a 37,000-year-old and a 33,000-year-old Cro-Magnon from Kostenki site on the Don River in Russia. Both belong to haplogroup U2. Their potential their paternal lineages were identified as Y haplogroups C1b and CT, two Paleolithic lineages that are now believed to be extinct in Europe. And I'm going to tell you that that's probably not the case. But Y haplo, because they changed the lettering to describe it. But anyway, Y haplogroup C was the first to leave Africa, according to this, and they put that date of colonizing Eurasia at only 70,000 years. So we already know that there's fully modern, just like European-looking people at this date right here, at 70,000 at least, and for sure at 40,000. And again, showing results for anatomical modern humans. They show you this guy that's 100,000 years old, but he ain't no Cro-Magnon. He don't look like a modern human. He has giant eyebrow ridges. Everything's different. So I'm saying that's not him. Now, here's a poor guy that had a severe fungal infection on his face and forehead, who is a Cro-Magnon about 32,000 years ago, and he is a modern European human, no different from what they're calling anatomically modern human beings. And no, I'm not getting weird because of the location. That's irrelevant. Europe's just a name we gave it now. So this guy's living out his life there. He had a bad fungal infection. Who knows what happened to him? But again, he doesn't look like that other guy they said is 100,000 years ago. Now, here gets into what makes people mad, because they don't like to realize that human beings, all of us, are an admixture, hybrid species of multiple groups, not multiple groups, but multiple species or subspecies of a main species of human, if you want to pick one out. It doesn't really matter, because we ended up going with the version that we are now. Now, keep in mind those dates, though. Genetic study of the Andaman Islanders uncovers new human ancestor. Some Asians possess genes that are Homo sapiens, Neanderthal, or Denisovan, but another human species altogether, India finds. So this is a fourth different human species that is in the mix. Now, this is where the dark skin phenotype comes from in Southeast Asia, probably coming from the Indian subcontinent, most likely. And we kind of know that because of genetic testing. So prehistoric species of men apparently weren't too finicky in their mating habits. A study done in India to detect the migration of hominids in Asia through genetics was small, but had startling results. The discovery of a new human ancestor, at least for some Southeast Asians. The mysterious hominid coexisted with Neanderthals and Denisovans, but was the different species. No remains of it have been found yet, so no fossils. Just like I'm saying, Cro-Magnon could have been walking all over the place. If he didn't leave a fossil, you wouldn't have known it. There could have been Neanderthal in places we haven't yet discovered, because you haven't found a fossil there yet. You didn't find any tools, no fossils. These are rare occurrences when you find these things. Just distant echoes of genes in the Andaman Islanders. And to give you some perspective, who the Andaman Islanders are, if they don't show you here, I'll show you after the map. This mysterious hominid coexisted, but was a different species. And this traced this mysterious hominid DNA were found in 10 islanders belonging to the Jarawa and the Onge tribes, who inhabit the Andaman Islands deep in the Bay of Bengal. So this is a island off of India, out here in the middle of the what is it? The Bay of Bengal, there between Thailand, Myanmar, if I could talk right. Yeah, lick my lips. In India, they're just out there in the ocean. All of this stuff's happening all throughout history. The Chinese, the Indians, the Aryans, all of these different cultures are popping up, disappearing, going and doing stuff. But out here on these islands, these guys are just living their life out. They don't even know what's going on. They're a Stone Age culture. So let's see here. I'm going to skip here and put that here, so you can get an image of who we're talking about. These are the guys. Now, one island has decided to, interact with modern civilization. The other island kills people on sight when they show up in the island. And you might remember the American guy that got off his boat and he ended up getting killed there. And I think somebody from somewhere else. But these guys were living independent by themselves for thousands of years out there. Evidently, because they had no contact with modern stuff. So let me get rid of that. Anyway, so these are the people that live there, and we know that some kind of breeding event happened there that mixed modern, I'm going to say Cro-Magnon, because that's who was running around Asia and, Europe. And besides that, we know that the guys didn't mix with Neanderthal. So they didn't even come in contact with Neanderthal, this ghost species. So here it is. Denisovan genes have been found throughout populations in Asia, chiefly Southeast Asia, and strongly in Papua New Guinea, but are non-existent in the Andaman Islands. So they did not mix with Denisovan. They did not mix with Neanderthal, but they did mix with a modern, anatomically correct human. In other words, Cro-Magnon, the one that they said was no different than modern Europeaners. And they have a black phenotype. They're living out there on the island, doing their thing. And they're a totally different human group than all the other ones because they've been segregated. Now, they're calling it a ghost species because they don't want to put a name to it for some reason. But they've been just living out there doing their thing, just like the Red Deer caveman, the Hobbit guy were segregated. Here's another one. Ghost ancestors. African DNA study detects mysterious human species. And guess what? There's more than one here in this group too. They kind of left out a lot of information in this, but gave you a lot. Scientists examining genomes of West Africans or Sub-Saharan Africans have detected signs that mysterious extinct human species interbred with our own species, which, like I said, there's a thin line. What they're saying is our species, right? But every time you find an example of what they're calling a anatomically modern human, it is a Cro-Magnon man, wherever they find him at, which is generally in North Africa or South Europe or in Asia. So scientists examining the genomes of West Africans have detected signs that mysterious extinct human species interbred with our own species tens of thousands of years ago in Africa. The latest evidence of humankind's complicated genetic ancestry. The study indicated that present West Day Africans trace substantial portion, some 2 to 20% or 2 to 19% of their genetic ancestry to extinct human species. Plural. It says "and," but it's actually plural. So there was more than one. What researchers are calling a ghost species. Again, they don't have a body and they don't want to put a name to it because, and I'll tell you why, we estimated that interbreeding occurred approximately only 43,000 years ago. This is 30,000 years after Cro-Mag is running around Europe, mixing with Denisovan and Neanderthal, and it explains why Africans also don't have much or any Denisovan or Neanderthal DNA, and it also explains why no Europeans, Asians, or Native Americans have the same ghost species DNA, except for African Americans now, but they're now 20 to 40% Caucasian also. So now they do have that DNA. So now we're all mixing up. It's all coming around. It's only one hybrid species. That's it. However, the idea that, like I said earlier, and I know this may ruffle some feathers, but it's not logical to think that Cro-Magnon and Asians, or how they put it simply is they're European and Asians and Native Americans, came out of Africa and they mutated into these different groups, and that's why everybody looks different. That's all nonsensical. That's nonsense. Obviously, just this ghost species right here tells you that the hybridization continued to happen all the way up until recently, and that the groups in Europe and Asia didn't come from Africa. That's why they don't carry this DNA. And if they're saying, the years that they came out of Africa was way before that, hundreds of thousands of years ago, which brings you to my own DNA and the way that they portray it, which I want to tell you, you have to invest in all three companies, probably Living DNA, 23andMe, and Ancestry.com to get a more of an accurate picture of who you are and what your ancestry actually is. So here is an overview of my mother line mitochondrial DNA, and it says My mother line is found in mitochondrial cells. It contains 16,500 DNA bases, meaning it's much smaller than the autosomal, however you say that, genome, which is the mix of you and your parents' mix. That's you. But anyway, let's get over here to my haplotype history, right? And remember, U2 is the branch of the Cro-Magnons that was there. So I'm obviously, because U2E comes directly from U2, I know I'm a direct ancestor from Cro-Magnon. U2E is a Eurasian subgroup of U2 and is a rare mother line mostly found in Siberia. U2E has been connected to many Bronze Age cultures. Your mother's signature belongs to U2E group. Haplogroup U2E is thought to be around 20,000 years old. The exact location of its origin is yet to be determined. Well, I would guess that it's somewhere around the Altai Mountains, because that's where the Cro-Mags with the U2 haptype were at. But let's go on. But considering U2 branches and current distribution of U2E, it may have first arisen in western regions of Asia. The mother of U2E is U2, which is more widely distributed in Southeast Asia. Many U2 groups are common in Southeast Asia. However, U2E is virtually undetectable, meaning that my maternal haptype is almost non-existent at this point in the future. This is thought to be because of lack of back migration, or a lack of migration and gene flow between Southeast Asia and European populations near the time of your mother line's birth. U2E has been connected to migrations of other early European cultures during the late Copper and Bronze Age. Today, your mother line is not found in high frequencies anywhere in the world and is quite a rare group. It's found across Europe and some parts of Asia. However, peak frequencies of U2E are found amongst the southern Altaian, I'm not sure how to say that, Altaian populations of Siberia. So that's the same place that they found the Cro-Magnons. It's the exact same area. And you can go on and on. It talks about how U2E is carried down in the Yamnaya culture, the corded ware culture, and goes back to these groups associated with creating metal in the Ural areas of Russia and intermixing with populations there about 5,500 years, connected to the corded ware people and the Yamnaya culture. So if you know what that is, that tells you something. Anyway, let's go back up here to the distribution map. And this is what they're talking about. So this one portion of Siberia, it's 0.9%, so almost nothing. In the Middle East, it's 2.0, which is almost nothing. But still, that's the places that it occurs in today's world. And then look over here, that's where most of the people at 3% live, is in southern Altaians, which is, in southern Siberia. Okay, oops, went ahead of myself. Now here, when we go back to the migration map, it goes to U, and right here it says the U group is a sub-haplogroup. Its branches contain multiple subclasses, including major European and Asian groups from U1 to U9 and everything in between. U is of ancient origin with an estimated age of around 56,000 years. That's 10,000 years after the breeding event they say happened in Africa. That's 10,000 years before that. Yet they mark that up here in Northern Europe and Central Eurasia. And the one that goes behind that is R, which is only found in like Iran, Iraq, Greece, Turkey, around there. And then all the way back to, and they're saying R is, old, it's distributed in India. And then you can go back to N, 65,000 years old, where they're saying its root is in Africa, yet they place it firmly in Israel. And that's where supposedly all of the people split. Now, they're also saying there's this group L3 that was before that, that's in Africa. However, they're putting that age at 70,000 years, which we know Cro-Magnon was up here in Europe at that time, but he didn't carry out any of these Western African or Sub-Saharan DNA into this population. So that didn't happen. And I don't know why they try to convince people that that's the story, when the people that live in Africa have their own untold story of Cro-Magnon being here in this continent, obviously, because we find their bodies all up in North Africa and in the Mediterranean there. So this is really cool. Now let's flip over to my father line. Okay, and I'm going to go to the haplotype history here. It's RL21. And you wouldn't think, that from that maternal haptype and this father haptype that I'll have the lineage this particular genome site says I have. So this one basically pegs me as waves of R1b that got carried over from Indo-European expansions. In other words, the same groups that were the U2E, and then they arrived in Wales and Scotland. And what they're saying is that basically it's an Atlantic Celt, because most of the people with this haptype don't really have a heavy Anglo-Saxon influence. And watch, we'll show the distribution map here. Look at it. Ireland 60%, Scotland 50%, Brittany 50%, Wales 50%, England, where they're heavily Anglo-Saxon, only 15%. In the Netherlands, only 6%. Norway 5%, Germany 2%, Switzerland 2%. Now, these aren't percentages of what I am. These are percentages of where the haptype shows up in frequencies in the world. So as you can see, there's some back migration, and they say that the reason that there is this haptype of over here in these other areas is literally because white slaves were brought from the British Isles back into Viking territory at different time spots. So, and you go over here, they do the same thing. They put the root in Africa, and then you go to AEO2, and then they have a whole different thing for the atom over here, which is this root. And then you see the same track through the Middle East into Eurasia. The problem is it seems Cro-Magnon, Denisovan, Neanderthal, and several other groups were already living up in Europe and Asia when the other people. So we have several groups of what would be called modern, because they're in the modern times of that area, humans. Now look at the overview. And this is the real trip. After, you would think I would be like Siberian or something, but then I just go to recent ancestry, and it shows only one region. Load your results. Great Britain and Ireland, South Central England, Ireland, Devon, all of it. So supposedly all of my genetics, my autosomal or whatever, however you pronounce that, DNA, the mixture of my mother and my father, are all in recent times located right there on the UK Isle, except for like in central England where the royalty and all that live. Not so much, because those are Anglo-Saxon influenced areas, and you can get into the history and blah, blah, blah on here, and it tells you all about, different stuff like that. Now, the trip is, let's go over here and look at this. Now, this is archaic DNA, which you get from some of these sites. Now, just because the website says you're a certain thing, don't trust that 100%. You actually have to look at what's called classical DNA, like who did you match in the past, and we'll look at the map real quick. Roman index 43 percentile. If you look at a map, it shows bodies of people that you were related to. It goes all through Europe, the Roman Empire, because you got to keep in mind, when you go to Ancestry.com, they're going to tell you you're 20% this, 30% that. Those are all recent made-up countries. Remember, not too long ago, the whole thing was a Roman Empire. And then you look at this, at the Greek thing. We go over here to the Greek, you look at the map. It shows all of the Greek people in antiquity that you have the same marker as, right? And then you can go over to the Egyptian. You want to see something trippy? Look at that map. It's only along the Nile River, because we know the demographic about 568 BC was different than the one later that now currently occupies it, and even before that. But then you go over to what's called the Neanderthal, and they show your archaic, and this is actually why I got this company, because they actually test for your archaic DNA, and the company is called Living DNA. But I wouldn't trust their recent ancestry that much, because it's the database is mainly centered in the UK, so they don't have big sample sizes from other groups around the world. That's why you have to take the 23andMe and the Ancestry.com to get a full view of that. And then there's some privacy issues and other stuff. But anyway, my closest living relative in the Neanderthal community was the spy Neanderthal, most similar here. The cave where they found this Neanderthal, evidently a little bit related to them. So I'm under the average of percentage, so I'm only 1.92% Neanderthal. That's how much I am. So I have conclusive proof that I'm part of a hybrid species of multiple species of humans. And it shows how close you are here to the other groups of people. Like, so if it goes all the way to 100, that means you're far away from them. If it's to 0, you're closer to them. And keep in mind, it said all my ancestry lives in the UK, but I'm closer to the Central and East Asians, Oceanic, American living customers. I'm, in the middle there, West Eurasia. I'm right in the middle, you see, but I'm not close to Africa at all. But I'm close over to South Asia, but yet I come from only the UK, right? But check this out. Let's go down here to the Denisovan results. I got a 0.21, so 0.21%, less than 1% of Denisovan, and I scored on this at 116. Now, they do have a scale here. You got it's by percentiles, so you kind of understanding your results. So you got between 0 and 1634 on the Denisovan one. I think the Neanderthal is like 0 to 8,000 here about. And so I scored really low compared to other humans, 1.9%, and my score was 306. So on the low end, obviously really low end of archaic DNA from the other groups. However, that shows that I have ancestry that goes back hundreds of thousands of years in Eurasia just from these other archaic humans right here. What a trip, right? Genetics explains the demise of Neanderthal. They didn't go extinct. We humped them and out of existence. That's what happened. So we are a hybrid species. Definitely. So what's weird about that is now they're finding all of these, evidence of different hominids at different times. And in my opinion, they have the time of when things are showing up, changing, evolving way off. If we know groups were stagnant and stayed basically the same for almost 1 million years, why wouldn't the other groups of humans also stay stagnant up until about 70 to 40,000 years ago when they started mingling, evidently out of necessity, creating the admixture hominid species we are today. We're a hybrid species, and no one can argue that. No one around the world. Nobody. So what do you guys think about that? They're in YouTube land. It's quite the idea. 12, who knows how many different hominids rolling around, having romantic occasions, creating different groups. Those groups get separated. They meet each other back in time. That happens. Here we're doing it in real time. Next, we're going to do my mate, my partner, my wifey DNA, and we are going to see, like her story through time. So, but keep in mind, when you take those tests, a lot of these countries, they're saying you're 25% Swedish, you're 50% Italian. Those things didn't even exist a couple hundred years ago. You mean, are you Roman? Are you Greek? Are you Egyptian? Are you a mix of those ancient peoples or Eurasian peoples? You can't say the name of the one group because of those weird groups, but you could say Yamnaya and you can say Indo-European to explain it. But the fact is, those are descendants of all archaic species of human beings, from Cro-Magnon to the ghost species and everything in between. Doinkin, doinkin. So that's the point of the show. Keep on doing it and make babies. Peace out. This is Revolution Radio. There we go. I had to hang up on the radio people. So what are you guys thinking about all that? Yeah, it's very interesting, the history of man, but I'm convinced now, with all the conflicting dates and informations, they really don't have a good grasp on where humans came from, all the different kinds, how we became what we are today, and what will we become. And now you add technology in the mix, and now you might start seeing species disappear, including the current admixture human hybrid. And that's all I got for Mountain High Time. Thanks for joining me. Oh, one more thing. Listener supported. I'll put that in the, or you know what? If you want to help, you can just look down there at the blue link on the PayPal, and that'll do it. That's good enough. That's my shameful hair plug for you guys. I'm gonna go get puffed. But before we go, what do you think? Are they gonna push us into a fake civil war? Pushing all that stupid made-up race narrative and left and right and he and she and they and them and my tone versus your tone. You know, I didn't even get into the, we'll do that since I'm still on the air. I didn't have time for the radio. But let's look at this, and I want to show you guys what I was talking about. Where is this? The wrong one. Here it is. All right. Let's go back over to my genetic test. I want to show you some cool stuff here. Lost my train of thought. No, okay. This is the cool thing that you get out of taking these tests. Archaic traits. We can link certain traits to exact genes that you may or may not have. And guess what? They have a list of them, and you can get them tested. And it can explain a lot about your behavior. And yes, believe it or not, each one of these species had their own unique behavior, IQ, traits, physical and mental, and, you know, no telling what happens when you mix and remix and remix. You get different combinations of these traits, like myself. So look at this right here. Let me take these headphones off. Excuse me. Studies on diverse modern human populations, as well as fully secret genomes of archaic humans, have shown evidence of beneficial genetic variants passing from archaic human populations into modern humans. In other words, a lot of the reason that the admixture human species of today still exist is because we picked up traits from different humans that saved our life, that saved our population. The genes allowed us to go on and not die from, you know, various diseases or situations, and that's the continual, you know, evolution of our species, I guess. The process known as adaptive introgression, AI, may have led to the accelerated adaptation and therefore improved survival rates of new environments for modern man as they migrated from Africa, allegedly, across the world. Well, some of them came from Africa for sure, but I don't think all of them did. And I think that's what the genes are proving. There were different groups going all over the place. Across the world, the genetic variants that originated in archaic humans and associated with different physical traits are explored here. And so here's one, which is weird because some of these don't actually fit me. But then again, they don't offer this service for the regular, you know, I guess Cro-Magnon or regular human core species DNA traits. They don't give you that. They only give you the ones from the other species. But a genetic variant associated with the gene EPAS1 has been linked with an improvement in coping with low oxygen levels. Population genetic analysis suggests that this variant is highly beneficial in the survival of humans adapting to life at high altitudes. This variant was introduced from Denisovans into the gene pool of our ancestors of the Nepalese Sherpa people approximately 30,000 years ago. Your result, you are not likely to have this adaptation in high altitude. And then you can click for more, and it shows you the gene, and it shows you that I am negative for all of them that would help me with high altitude ease, so I wouldn't get hypoxia. The only problem is, well, I go to high altitude stuff all the time, and I'm puffing on joints, and I'm puffing on, black and milds like there's no tomorrow while I'm hiking up the hill. And I've never had a problem with hypoxia at high altitudes ever. So possibly I have the human equivalent. I mean, see, that's why it's so confusing. We're all humans. They're all humans. Everybody's humans. But the modern anatomically correct human that we are now, the core species of, probably has another gene that takes care of this as well. Maybe not as good, but also. Here's another one, sleeping patterns. Are you a morning or an evening person? Do you like to nap during the day? These traits have been linked to genetic variants associated with genes ASB1 and EXOC6, respectively. These variants are believed to have been introduced into the human genome from Neanderthal DNA. Your result, you are likely to have a preference for being an evening person, quote unquote, a night owl. You are not likely to have an increased tendency for daytime dozing or narcolepsy. In other words, I can stay awake from long periods of times, whether it's day or night, but I prefer the nighttime, which is true. Not like the other one that didn't seem to fit. But right here, it shows I'm positive for ASB1 and negative for this other one of narcolepsy. So I don't have narcolepsy because that comes from Neanderthal right there, ASB1, negative. But the one that keeps me up like a night owl, ASB1, positive. So I got that one. I didn't get the CT or the TT, whatever gene type that is there. So let's go down here to immune system. And this may come into the future when you start thinking about why certain people get sick in certain areas and other people don't, based on their genes. And no one will ever bring up the fact that it could be the archaic DNA in each group that could be a vector to harm them, if you get my drift. So immune system benefits. A number of immune system genes for which genetic variants have been attributed to Neanderthal DNA. These are STAT2, OAS1, and OAS2, OAS3, TLR1, TLR6, TLR10, HLA, and TNFA-IP3. And yeah, it's in that they thought the variants aided humans in adaptation to non-African environments, specifically new encountered diseases. In other words, because the Neanderthal, Denisovan, Cro-Magnon, ghost species, whatever, already lived in an area for thousands of years, they didn't get sick from whatever disease was going around anymore until the introduction of livestock and stuff like that. So your gene type for SNP is associated with significant overall decrease in the expression of inflammatory response genes. In other words, I don't swell up. I don't get all swollen. If I get hit in the face, I don't get a big old fat eye. If I get stung by a bee, I don't swell up, yada, yada, yada. However, it says that pathogen recognition, I am not likely to have an increased expression of TLR1 involved in pathogen recognition and innate immunity. In other words, I could probably get sick because my body doesn't recognize whatever viral component it is immediately and get rid of it. And if you remember back, a lot of Italians got sick with the COVID really bad. And a lot of Asian groups got sick with the COVID really bad. What do those two groups have in common? Well, they have Neanderthal DNA. That's what they have in common. So the groups with the highest Neanderthal DNA seem to get more sick from the COVID. So like if they were 2 or 3 or 4% higher and they had some of these genes triggered and they were positive on here, they might get sick, which looks like it includes me right here. I don't know if that's the one that did it or not. But it says you are not likely to have increased expression of TLR1 involved in pathogen recognition and innate immunity. Autoimmunity, your gene type for SNP blah, 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 is not associated with higher autoimmune disease risk. So I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about weird autoimmune disease risk, or at least that one. What's cool over here is these are traits people don't realize you get multiple sets of, I guess, from the core human species and also Neanderthal or Denisovan. They don't do it for Denisovan, but they do this part for this. So dark hair, your gene type for SNP is not associated with dark hair color. However, evidently, the human one is. Blonde hair, your gene type is not associated with blonde hair. And I have blonde hairs on my head. And I have blonde hairs in my beard, and some of my kids have blonde hairs. So that doesn't fit either, because there's different, groups of genes that your body is a mix of. This is cool. I do not have an increased likelihood to have freckles because I am negative for that gene that came from Neanderthals. One of, not the only one, but this one, I think, or maybe it's the freckles that's only from Neanderthal. The red hair is different. So red hair from Neanderthal may not be the only source of red hair in human beings, but it is one of them. So tolerant to the sun. It says you are likely to be predisposition to sunburn instead of tan, and increased incident of childhood sunburn. And this is, I've tested positive for this gene. However, I've never been sunburned. I don't burn. I get brown. I get very brown. I get dark, and I don't burn. However, my kids are light skinned and they look like they might burn, and maybe they have that and that might mess with them. What's weird is I carry both the darker skin pigmentation, which, remember I was telling you before, they showed the Neanderthal woman that, a lot of people thought were white colored or light skinned hominids. It turns out they were dark and they had a spectrum too. I'm part of that spectrum. I have the darker skin pigmentation, and that explains why I can get really dark. I can stay in the sun in the winter and become really light, but a few days out in the sun, I'm back to dark brown again. I test positive for darker skin pigmentation, but lighter skin pigmentation, I do not carry the Neanderthal one that's associated with lighter skin. I'm negative on both of those. However, obviously, I carry the human lighter skin gene because my kids are light, or maybe they got it from their mama or a copy, but the whole thing is trippy. Now, wait till they get this way more precise, and they can literally tell you why you got bushy eyebrows, why you got green and brown eyeballs, why you got red, brown, black, blonde, white hair in your thing. I have red hair, but I don't carry the or at least I didn't think I did. It says it on there. No, I don't have the red-haired one either. But that's cool. You can find these traits, and as this DNA increases, you're going to be able to find out more and more about yourself, which means for some people, they're not going to like the information that they get because it messes with their perception of reality and their established history that they've had or they think they have, or maybe some of the new made-up ones that you see going around the internet all the time. Who knows? But whatever it was, we know one thing. Humans are freaky mofos. And if it's got a hole, we'll pork it. And the main core species, and I don't know about the other ones, but I'm assuming that they were too, is they only want to know if they can fuck it, kill it, or eat it. Doesn't that seem about like human nature? So what do you think we're going to do out in space when we come across new worlds? Well, the people, the D-bags that get there will probably only think three things. Can I fuck it, kill it, or eat it? Not necessarily in that order. Unfortunately, them's the breaks. Anyway, peace out. This has been Mountain High Time. I'll see you next Saturday for another live show right here on Mountain High Time, where the time and the place are the same. Partly cloudy weather out there. I hope you're enjoying some, and peace out.
That's very dirty.